Ladies and gentlemen, I want to speak to someone today who's been feeling like life has gone off script. The doors didn't open the way you thought. The plans didn't unfold like you expected. Maybe you've been praying, believing, holding on, but nothing's changed yet. Let me tell you something powerful. You may not know this is coming, but God does. What looks like silence isn't the end of your story. It's just a pause before the breakthrough. You see, sometimes the best things in life show up unannounced. You weren't expecting it. You weren't even praying for it that day. But out of nowhere, the opportunity, the healing, the restoration, it shows up. That's how grace works. We all have a picture in our minds of how life is supposed to go. We set goals, we make plans, we draw timelines. By this age, I'll be married. By this year, I'll be in that career. We write our story in neat chapters, confident that if we just work hard and do the right thing, everything will go according to plan. And while there's nothing wrong with vision or preparation, in fact, they're essential, there's one truth we all come to face sooner or later. Life doesn't always follow our script. You may have had things lined up perfectly. The degree was earned, the door was open, you were in the right place, doing the right thing, and yet the opportunity slipped away. The relationship ended, the business failed. Suddenly, everything that made sense no longer does. It's in these moments that we begin to wonder, did I miss something? Did I take the wrong turn? Did God forget about me? But friend, just because your plan didn't unfold the way you thought, doesn't mean God's plan isn't still at work. Sometimes the detours are the real destinations. What feels like a delay may be divine protection. What looks like rejection may be redirection. You see, God's ways are higher than ours, and His timeline rarely looks like ours. He sees the whole picture. We only see a frame. That job you didn't get, maybe it would have led to burnout. That person who walked away, maybe they weren't meant to go with you into the next season. That opportunity that passed you by, maybe it would have been more of a burden than a blessing. You may feel disappointed, but God is still directing. There's beauty in surrendering to a bigger story, one we don't fully understand yet. When life goes off script, it forces us to trust beyond what we can see. It teaches us patience. It builds our faith. It draws us closer to the one who holds the pen. You're not the author of your life, God is. And He's writing something far more meaningful than you could ever draft on your own. Sometimes the best chapters come after a season of silence, a season where you thought the story was over, but it was just the setup for something greater. Think about all the people throughout history who faced unexpected turns. Joseph was betrayed and thrown into a pit. That wasn't in his script. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness. That wasn't in his plan. Ruth lost everything before stepping into a new beginning. Over and over we see that life may take us through valleys we didn't ask for, but it doesn't mean the journey is wasted. In fact, those very valleys became the places where transformation happened. It's in the unplanned, the unexpected, and even the unwanted moments where God often does His deepest work. Maybe you're in a season right now where nothing looks like what you imagined. Maybe you're tired, confused, or even angry because you did everything right and still ended up in a place you didn't plan for. If that's you, take heart. Just because you're off your script doesn't mean you're off God's radar. He sees you. He knows exactly where you are. He hasn't abandoned you. In fact, He may be closer now than ever before. And even if the road ahead looks unclear, know this: His plan for your life is still in motion. You're not behind. You're not lost. You're not forgotten. You're simply being rerouted. God doesn't need perfect conditions to bless you. He can make a way in the wilderness. He can cause water to flow from a rock. He can breathe life into dry bones. So don't measure the future based on your current surroundings. The script may have changed, but the story isn't over. You are still in God's hands, and He never wastes a single moment. He's not just the God of the mountaintop. He's the God of the middle, the in-between, the I didn't see this coming season, and He's still leading you even here. Have you ever been in a place where You weren't even looking for something and suddenly a door opened. You weren't asking, you weren't striving, you weren't pushing, and out of nowhere, the right person walked into your life. The opportunity showed up, the burden lifted. That's not coincidence. That's not luck. That's divine timing. That's the kind of blessing that reminds you God hasn't forgotten you. He's just full of surprises. Sometimes we think blessings only come through hard work, long prayers, or seasons of intense effort. And yes, there's value in faithfulness and discipline, but don't underestimate the power of grace. Blessings that you didn't earn, didn't schedule, and didn't see coming. That's how God moves sometimes. He shows up in the middle of your ordinary day with something extraordinary. You were just doing your best to make it through, and then suddenly the breakthrough comes. You may not even realize it, but heaven has your name on things you haven't even prayed for yet. Doors you didn't knock on, paths you didn't map out. Sometimes what you've been longing for is quietly making its way toward you, not in your timing, but in God's perfect timing. That's why you have to stay open, stay ready, stay expectant. You never know when something beautiful is going to break through the routine of your life. Think about it. Some of the biggest moments in life happen when we're not expecting them. A conversation that leads to healing, a connection that changes everything, a shift in your heart that you didn't even see coming. That's how unexpected blessings work. They sneak up on you in the best way, and suddenly things begin to make sense. You realize all the delays, the detours, the disappointments were actually leading you to this moment, to this door, to this answer, to this joy. Don't limit how God can bless you. Sometimes we box in our expectations and assume that blessing will only come through a specific route, a promotion, a person, a platform. But what if God wants to do it in a different way? What if the thing you thought was small, insignificant, or random was actually part of a much bigger plan? The job you almost didn't take, the coffee shop you almost didn't walk into, the yes that didn't make sense at the time. Sometimes the unexpected is the beginning of everything changing. You may feel like you're in a season where not much is happening. You're showing up, doing your part, but there's no visible sign of breakthrough. That's okay, keep going, because the truth is, the blessing might already be on the way. You just haven't seen it yet. And when it arrives, it will make you forget the long nights, the tears, the wondering if anything would ever shift. One sudden blessing can do what years of effort could. God can accelerate what you thought would take forever, so stay encouraged, stay present. You don't have to have everything figured out. You don't need to see the whole path to walk in faith. Just keep trusting, keep being faithful, and watch how heaven shows up in unexpected ways. You might not have seen it coming, but when it arrives, you'll know it was always meant for you. We've all had moments where we prayed for something and didn't get an answer right away. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, and sometimes even years. And still, the thing we're believing for hasn't come to pass. In those moments, it's easy to start thinking, maybe it's not going to happen. Maybe the answer is no. But I want to encourage you with something today. A delay is not the same as a denial. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not going to. It might just be that God is getting you ready for what He's getting ready for you. We often only see the waiting as wasted time, but in God's eyes, waiting is working. He's not just having you sit in stillness for no reason. He's refining things in you, growing your patience, maturing your perspective, strengthening your character. See, you may think you're waiting on the blessing, but sometimes the blessing is waiting on you, on the version of you that's prepared to carry it with grace and wisdom. God won't give you something that will crush you. He loves you too much to release something into your life before you're ready for it. Think of it like this. If you were building a house, you wouldn't put the roof on before laying the foundation. The same is true with your future. Some delays are about laying deeper roots so that when the blessing does come, you can sustain it. Maybe you're being delayed in one area because God is strengthening something behind the scenes that you don't even know you'll need yet. You think you're just stuck, but you're being strategically prepared for a moment that hasn't arrived. Sometimes it's not just about you being ready, it's about the situation being ready too. The right opportunity, the right people, the right timing. God is aligning things you don't see. That job you want, maybe He's working on the person who's going to open the door for you. That relationship you've been praying for, maybe He's healing their heart before they meet you. There are moving pieces in this story that you don't even know are being arranged. He's not ignoring you, He's orchestrating. Delay doesn't mean defeat. It doesn't mean forgotten. And it definitely doesn't mean denied. In fact, some of the greatest blessings in life take the longest to arrive. Not because God is punishing you, but because what's coming is that important. You don't want a rushed blessing, you want the right one. And sometimes God has to hold things back on purpose, not to discourage you, but to develop you, to teach you trust, to teach you how to walk by faith, not by sight. If everything came easy and fast, we'd never learn how to lean into Him. It's in the delay that we discover just how much we need God, not just for the outcome, but for the journey. Some of your most meaningful growth will happen in the seasons where it feels like nothing's moving. You'll learn to pray differently, to worship in the quiet, to trust without the evidence. And those are the things that will sustain you even after the blessing comes. Delay is a classroom, and what you learn there will shape your entire future. So don't lose heart just because it's taking longer than you hoped. Don't assume that God said no just because He hasn't said yes yet. If you're still waiting, that means He's still working. Your name is not off the list. Your prayer is not forgotten. Your dream is not canceled. It's just unfolding on a different timeline, one that may not be comfortable, but will be perfect. When the moment is right, you won't have to force it. God will bring it together in such a way that you'll know every second of the wait was worth it. There's something deeply unsettling about silence. We were wired to look for signs, a message, a door, a whisper, a confirmation. And when nothing seems to be happening, when the heavens feel quiet and our prayers feel like they're echoing into an empty room, it's easy to wonder, is God even listening? That's one of the hardest places to be, a silent season. But let me remind you, just because God is silent doesn't mean He is still. Even when you can't hear Him, He's working behind the scenes in ways you cannot see. Think about a stage production. The curtain is down, and the audience doesn't see what's happening, but backstage there's movement. The crew is setting things in place. The lights are being adjusted. The actors are preparing for the next scene. It may look still from the outside, but a whole lot is going on in the background. That's what God does. When it seems like nothing is happening in your life, He's behind the curtain of your circumstances, arranging details, lining up timing, working through people, and preparing a new scene that's about to unfold. Sometimes God works quietly so you don't rush into something prematurely. If He showed you everything He was doing, you might try to force it, step ahead of Him, or lean on your own understanding. That's why He often moves in ways that feel hidden, because He's protecting the process. The silence isn't punishment, it's actually a form of grace. He's teaching you to trust what you don't see, to lean into faith, and to believe that His hand is still guiding even when His voice seems still. We often associate progress with action, things we can measure, see, and feel. But some of the most important progress happens in invisible places. God is healing things in your heart that you didn't know were broken. He's softening places that were once hardened by disappointment. He's preparing others who are connected to your next season. You might not see the fruit yet, but the roots are growing deep. What He's building in the quiet will last, because it's not shallow, it's sacred. Remember, God doesn't operate on our timeline. He's not bound by our deadlines or stressed by our schedule. He's eternal. And when you trust Him, you have to trust His pace. There are prayers you prayed months ago, maybe even years, that He hasn't forgotten. You may have moved on from them, but God didn't. You may have thought nothing came of them, but they're still alive in heaven. Seeds take time to break through the soil. Just because you don't see the bloom doesn't mean the roots aren't growing strong. And here's something beautiful. Sometimes the silence is because He's letting you rest while He works. You've been through the struggle, the striving, the questions, and now He's covering you while He finishes the work behind the curtain. There's no need to worry, panic, or try to fix it yourself. The season may feel quiet, but the story isn't over. The composer is still writing. The director is still directing. The potter is still shaping. Just because the scene has paused doesn't mean the play has ended. So if you're in a silent season, if the doors aren't opening, the answers aren't coming, and your heart is tired of waiting, take heart, breathe, rest. God is not absent. He is working behind the scenes. And when the time is right, when everything is in place, when the season is full, the curtain will rise. And you'll step into something so beautiful, so right, that you'll look back on the silence and say, now I understand. He was there the whole time. We all have a picture in our minds of what a breakthrough looks like. Maybe it's a dream job offer, a sudden healing, a long-awaited yes to a prayer you've whispered in the dark. And while God absolutely answers prayers, we have to remember something important. He doesn't always answer them the way we imagine. Your breakthrough might not show up in the package you're expecting, but that doesn't mean it isn't from Him. In fact, some of the greatest answers come in the most surprising forms. Sometimes we miss the blessing because we're looking for something flashy, dramatic, or immediate. But God often moves in ways that are subtle, humble, and unexpected. He might send a person into your life who doesn't seem like the right connection at first, but they open the door to your next opportunity. He might close a door you were desperate to walk through, only for you to discover that what's waiting on the other side was far better than anything you imagined. Just because it looks different doesn't mean it's not divine. Think about how Jesus came into the world. People were expecting a powerful king, a military leader, someone with status and force. But He came as a baby in a manger in the most unexpected, humble form possible. And yet He carried the greatest breakthrough the world has ever known. That's how God moves. He uses the overlooked, the unlikely, the things and people we'd never expect to bring about the miraculous. Your breakthrough might come through a detour, a delay, or even a disappointment that turns out to be destiny in disguise. Maybe right now you're asking God for direction and it feels like nothing is happening. But what if He's already sent the answer, just not the way you expected it? What if the no you heard wasn't rejection, but redirection? What if the thing that seems small, inconvenient, or unrelated is actually the first step into your next chapter? God specializes in divine surprises. That conversation you almost skipped, that opportunity you nearly turned down, any one of them could be the doorway to something bigger than you realize. We need to be careful not to put God in a box. His creativity goes far beyond our understanding. He can use a stranger, a storm, a setback, or even your own mistakes to lead you into purpose. He's not limited by your circumstances, your qualifications, or your expectations. If you're only willing to receive the breakthrough in one form, you might reject the very thing that was meant to bless you. That's why we need spiritual discernment, to recognize God's hand even when it doesn't look the way we thought it would. The truth is, your breakthrough might not feel like a breakthrough at first. It might feel uncomfortable. It might stretch you. It might require you to leave behind something familiar. But on the other side of that risk is something real, something that shifts the atmosphere in your life, something that opens you up to new vision, new healing, new confidence. The form may surprise you, but the fruit will confirm it was from God. Don't be so focused on the wrapping that you miss the gift. So stay open, stay sensitive. Ask God not just to give you what you're asking for, but to help you recognize it even when it comes in a different shape. Your breakthrough is not delayed, it's not denied, it might just be disguised. But it's coming, and when it arrives, you'll say, I didn't see it coming like this, but I'm so glad it came. It's hard to see clearly in the middle of a setback. Maybe you lost the job, the door closed, the relationship ended, or the opportunity slipped through your fingers. In that moment, it's easy to feel like you've been pushed backward. It feels like failure, disappointment, or maybe even punishment. But what if what you're calling a setback is actually a setup? What if that very thing you're trying to get over is actually the thing God is going to use to take you somewhere greater? That's the kind of God we serve. A God who wastes nothing. He doesn't just work in the victories, the highs, and the breakthroughs. He works just as powerfully in the losses, the delays, and the closed doors. Sometimes He allows something to fall apart, not to hurt you, but to make room for what's coming. What feels like a step backward might actually be a step to the side to line you up for something that's about to change your life. Think of Joseph in the Bible. Betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, thrown in prison for something he didn't do. For years, it looked like his life was one long series of setbacks. But every place he was sent, even the ones that looked like defeat, were actually preparing him for promotion. If he had skipped the prison, he wouldn't have ended up in the palace. God used the places that looked like a loss to set him up for leadership. The same can be true for you. That place where you were rejected, it might have saved you from a situation that would have drained you. That delay you were frustrated about, it may have protected you from moving forward before you were truly ready. You don't always see the protection in the moment, but you'll feel the purpose when you look back. God doesn't just allow a setback for no reason. If He permits it, it's because He plans to redeem it. Sometimes the setback is what wakes us up. It realigns our priorities. It brings us back to the core of who we are. You may not have asked for the struggle, but the struggle revealed strength you didn't know you had. It exposed the people who weren't really for you. It shook loose the things you were holding on to that couldn't go with you to the next level. You thought you were breaking, but really you were being rebuilt. And what's being built now is stronger, wiser, and more grounded in who you're meant to be. The beauty of God's process is that He never lets the pain go to waste. When He sets you up, it's not just for your benefit. It's so that you can help others who are going through their own setbacks. That breakup, that betrayal, that burnout, it becomes part of your story, part of your strength. It becomes your testimony. And suddenly, what was once your greatest hurt is now your greatest platform to speak life, encourage others, and show that, yes, God can turn even this around. So don't lose hope in the middle of your setback. Don't throw in the towel just because it doesn't look like you thought it would. This is not the end, it's a setup for something better, bigger, and beyond what you were planning for yourself. You may not see it yet, but keep walking, keep trusting, because when it all comes together, you'll realize that the thing you thought was breaking you was really building you up for the breakthrough. There's something incredibly challenging about being almost there. When you've been praying, pushing, showing up, and believing, and yet the answer still hasn't come, it can be tempting to give up. The finish line feels invisible, the weight feels unbearable, and everything in you wants to just settle. But I want to remind you of something today. You're closer than you think. Just because you can't see the shift doesn't mean it's not right around the corner. Sometimes the most pressure, the most resistance, and the most doubt shows up right before the breakthrough. That's not a sign to back off. That's a sign you're on the edge of something. You've come too far to stop now. You've sown too many tears, prayed too many prayers, grown through too much pain to walk away just before things turn. The enemy doesn't fight what isn't a threat. So if the pressure has increased, it could mean heaven is about to release something in your life that's been years in the making. Picture a seed underground for weeks, maybe months. There's no visible sign of life, but below the surface, there's growth. There's stretching, expanding, pushing through layers of earth. And then suddenly, that's how it is with your dream, your healing, your promise. You may not see anything above the surface yet, but God has been growing something in the dark that's about to emerge into the light. Don't walk away from the garden just before the bloom. The truth is, we rarely know how close we really are. You may feel exhausted, overlooked, or like your faith is hanging on by a thread. But God isn't done. He's not looking for perfection. He's looking for perseverance. And sometimes your greatest act of faith is simply not quitting, showing up one more time, believing one more time, trusting one more time, even if everything in you wants to give up. That kind of persistence moves heaven. When you're close to something big, it often won't feel exciting, it'll feel exhausting. Why? Because spiritual labor is just like physical labor. Labor is full expansion. The closer you get to birth, the more intense it becomes. Don't misread the pressure as punishment. It's actually a sign that delivery is near. The pain you're feeling isn't the end of the story. It's the contraction before the promise is born. God is working in ways you don't even realize. And if you just keep going, you're going to see it with your own eyes. One conversation, one connection, one divine moment can change everything. You might be one prayer away from the open door, one decision away from the healing, one step away from the shift. Don't let fatigue rob you of your future. Don't let disappointment convince you that it's over. You're too close. You've come through too much to stop now. Even if you have to crawl across the finish line, keep moving. God honors the ones who stay faithful in the unseen moments. So take a breath. Remind yourself of every time God has carried you before. You didn't come this far on your own. And He didn't bring you this far to leave you here. You're on the edge of something holy, something powerful, something new. Don't quit before the shift. What you've been waiting on might be waiting for just one more step of faith. There's a moment we all face at some point, a moment when everything seems to be falling apart. You've tried everything, given your best, held on to hope, and yet nothing seems to change. You look around and all you see are pieces of a broken plan, a fractured dream, a silent season. And in that place, it's easy to assume it's over. But here's what I want to remind you. When it feels like the end, God might just be turning the page to a new beginning. Some endings are not losses, they're launches. What looks like a setback, a failure, or a heartbreak could actually be God closing one chapter because the next one requires your full attention. He's not punishing you. He's positioning you. When doors close, when relationships shift, when the familiar falls away, it doesn't mean your story is over. It might mean that He's about to write a new one that exceeds what you had planned for yourself. It's hard to see new beginnings when you're standing in the rubble. But that's often where the greatest transformations begin. Look at nature. Forests burn, but out of that scorched ground, new life eventually springs up. The soil becomes richer, the roots go deeper. What looked like devastation was actually preparation for something more vibrant, more alive, more enduring. God doesn't waste pain, He turns ashes into beauty. You may be standing in ashes now, but resurrection is coming. Sometimes it takes the end of what we wanted to make room for what we needed. You thought you'd be further along by now, in a different place with different results, but maybe the delay, the detour, the disappointment, maybe that was God's mercy. Maybe He was protecting you from something you couldn't see. Sometimes He lets things fall apart, not because He doesn't care, but because He cares that much. He won't let you settle for less when He's prepared more. And here's the beauty, God is a master of new beginnings. All throughout Scripture, He met people at the end of their rope and gave them a new start. When Sarah was too old to conceive, He gave her a child. When Moses thought he was disqualified, He called him to lead. When the prodigal son came back in shame, the Father ran to him with grace. Over and over, we see the same pattern. The end of one thing became the launch pad for the miraculous. If you feel like something is over, the dream, the plan, the season, don't despair. Instead, ask God, what are you starting? Because in His kingdom, endings are never final. They are fertile ground for the next move of God in your life. What you're calling done might just be different. What you're grieving might be the very thing that grows your faith. What you lost might be the space God's clearing for something new to take root. So hold on, not to the past, but to the possibility. The story isn't over. You may be in the valley right now, but the mountaintop is still ahead. God is not finished writing your life. This chapter might be hard, but the next one might be the one that changes everything. When it feels like the end, don't give up. Something greater is on its way. So now I want to speak directly to the part of you that's tired, the part that's been waiting, wondering, maybe even weeping behind closed doors. You've heard message after message. You've held on to promises, and still there are places in your life that haven't moved. But I believe you didn't come across this moment by accident. This is your unexpected message. And it's not here to discourage you. It's here to remind you, God sees you. He knows exactly where you are, and He hasn't forgotten His word over your life. The shift is coming. The breakthrough is on the way. It may not look like what you imagine. It may arrive through a detour, a delay, or in a form you didn't expect. But when it comes, and it will, you'll look back and say, it didn't happen how I thought, but it happened better than I could have dreamed. Don't give up in the quiet seasons. Don't walk away because it got hard. Don't assume it's over when it might be the beginning. You're closer than you think. God is still moving, and your story isn't finished. In fact, the best chapters haven't even been written yet. The page is turning, the scene is shifting, and what's coming will not only answer your prayers, it will exceed them. So keep your heart open. Keep your spirit expectant. Keep your eyes fixed on the one who never wastes a moment, never loses control, and never forgets a promise. He's working, He's weaving, He's aligning, and soon what you've been waiting for will walk right into your life, right on time.